The human entered her world, and the princess stopped an empire. The wind carried a soft hum, the resonance of the city's energy systems blending with the natural music of the forests below. She had always loved this view, the way her world seemed to float between reality and dream. Yet today, a strange tension gripped her chest. Reports of unusual energy readings near the edge of their system had unsettled the council, but no one could explain their origin. She shifted her weight and adjusted the silver clasp on her ceremonial robe, her mind turning over possibilities. As the Princess of Veloria, responsibility was a constant companion, and though she often longed for freedom from protocol, she could never ignore the needs of her people. The palace, a gleaming structure of crystal and metal that seemed to grow organically from the mountain itself, was quiet this morning. Most of her advisors were still in their chambers, preparing for a council meeting she had scheduled for later in the day. Suddenly, the sky tore apart. A streak of blinding white light cut across the blue atmosphere, accompanied by a loud, resonant crack that vibrated through the palace walls. Alira's heart skipped a beat. She had seen meteor showers before, but this was different. This object moved with intention, its trajectory precise yet unpredictable. Within moments, it disappeared behind the nearest floating ridge, leaving a trail of shimmering particles. Alarm sirens began to echo across the city. The palace communication systems lit up with alerts, unauthorized spacecraft approaching at high velocity. Alira frowned. Veloria had defenses, but nothing in its history had ever approached at such speed and with such precise navigation. Without waiting for confirmation, she activated the palace's external sensors, bringing up a three-dimensional hologram of the approaching object. It was a small spacecraft, unlike anything Alira had seen before. Its design was simple, almost primitive compared to the sleek, energy-efficient Valorian crafts. The metal surface was scratched and scorched, evidence of atmospheric entry, and its shape did not match any of the ships cataloged in her people's records. Most puzzling of all was the presence of a life signal. It was faint but unmistakable. Someone or something was inside. Alira's pulse quickened. "Prepare a landing team," she commanded, her voice steady even as her mind raced. "I want full security, but do not attack unless they show aggression. We do not know who or what this is." The corridors of the palace soon filled with activity. Soldiers in crystalline armor moved with silent precision, and engineers adjusted energy shields along the perimeter. Alira remained on the balcony, her eyes fixed on the ridge where the object had disappeared. Minutes felt like hours. Then, a flash of light, followed by a low rumble, indicated that the craft had landed. Alira descended from the balcony and joined the security team. As she approached the landing site, she could see the outline of the ship clearly for the first time. It was small, roughly the size of a Valorian patrol vessel, but its design was alien, made of materials unfamiliar to her sensors. Smoke curled from its sides and a panel near the front had partially detached, exposing the interior. The hatch opened with a hiss. A figure emerged. Alira's breath caught. The being was human, or at least as close to human as she had ever seen in her studies of interstellar anthropology. He was tall, with brown hair and sharp features, wearing a suit that seemed both protective and functional. He staggered slightly, clutching his side, and his eyes widened as he took in his surroundings. Alira stepped forward, holding her hand high in a gesture of peace. "I am Princess Alira of Veloria," she said. "You are not under threat here. Who are you, and why have you come?" The human blinked, confusion flickering across his face. I don't know," he said finally, his voice rough but steady. "I was traveling and something went wrong. I didn't mean to," he trailed off, looking around in awe at the floating mountains and the shimmering city. Alira observed him closely. He was unlike any alien she had encountered, yet there was a familiarity in the way he moved, a kind of raw adaptability that her people often lacked. "You are hurt," she said softly. "Step forward. My people will help you." The human nodded and allowed two Valorian medics to approach. As they examined him, Alyra studied his craft. Its technology was primitive, yet efficient. She could see potential in it, perhaps even something that could be adapted to Valoria's systems. But for now, her focus remained on the human. "What is your name?" she asked, returning to his side. "Ethan," he said, managing a weak smile. "Ethan Carter," Alyra nodded. "Ethan, you are far from your home, you must rest. We will find a way to help you recover and understand what happened." Despite his exhaustion, Ethan's curiosity burned bright. His eyes darted to the distant mountains, the forests below, and the towering structures of the city. This is incredible," he murmured. "I've never seen anything like it. How is this possible?" Alyra smiled faintly. "Valoria has always been a world of possibilities, but it is also a world under threat. You arrived at a time when my people faced challenges unlike any in our history." Ethan looked at her, sensing the weight behind her words. "Threats?" he asked. "From who?" Before Alyra could respond, the palace's alarms blared again. The sensors had detected multiple ships approaching from the edge of the system. They were sleek, black, and ominous. The insignia was unmistakable: the Korvath Dominion, a ruthless empire known for conquering star systems without mercy. Alyra's stomach tightened. The council had feared this moment, and now it was here. "Prepare defenses," she commanded. "We cannot let them land." "Ethan, stay behind the shields. It is not safe." The human looked at her, a mixture of fear and determination in his eyes. "I can help," he said firmly. "I may not know your technology, but I can think and I can learn quickly. Let me try." Alyra hesitated. Trusting a stranger was dangerous, but something in Ethan's presence sparked an idea she had never considered. Perhaps this human could offer a perspective her people had never known, a way to face an empire without surrendering. "Very well," she said finally. "But follow my instructions carefully. One mistake could cost us everything." The Korvath ships moved with precision, forming a triangular formation as they entered Valoria's orbit. Their weapons glinted, ready to strike. Alyra activated the city's energy shields, a shimmering dome that encased the central structures. The ground rumbled as the first Korvath ship fired a warning blast, the energy scattering harmlessly against the shield. Ethan observed the display with keen interest. "Your shields are strong," he said, "but predictable. If you shift the pattern dynamically, you could confuse their targeting systems." Alyra raised an eyebrow. "Explain." He gestured toward a nearby console. "If you feed a variable signal into the energy matrix, it will create random fluctuations. The Dominion systems will interpret it as instability and hesitate, giving you time to counterattack or retreat strategically." Alyra studied him carefully. His suggestion was bold, unorthodox, and risky, yet it also held merit. Taking a deep breath, she nodded. "Do it. Coordinate with the engineers." Minutes later, the shields began to flicker and dance unpredictably. The Korvath ships hesitated, their targeting systems struggling to adapt. Alyra seized the moment, ordering energy pulses to launch from hidden turrets on the floating mountains, striking the Dominion ships in areas they least expected. The Dominion commander, a towering figure in black armor, snarled. "They are amateurs," he muttered, but the results proved otherwise. The pulses damaged their ships and forced them to retreat temporarily. Ethan turned to Alyra, a hint of a smile on his face. "That worked," he said. "Sometimes unpredictability is more powerful than strength." Alyra nodded, realizing the truth in his words. "You have a sharp mind, Ethan. Perhaps your arrival is more than accident." The council convened later that evening. Alyra spoke with confidence, presenting the idea of combining Valorian technology with Ethan's strategies. Some advisors were skeptical, resistant to trusting an outsider, but Alyra's resolve was unshakable. She insisted that innovation and courage, not fear of the unknown, would guide their response to the Korvath threat. As night fell over Veloria, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting the floating mountains in hues of violet and gold. Alira walked through the palace gardens, Ethan at her side, both gazing at the stars. "Why did you come here?" she asked softly. Ethan shook his head, a faint smile on his lips. "I don't know yet, but I think maybe I was meant to be here at this time. Maybe to help you, or maybe to learn from you. Either way, I don't regret it." Alira looked at him, a sense of determination rising within her. The Korvath Dominion would come again, stronger and more ruthless. But with new ideas, courage, and unexpected allies, perhaps her people could stand against even the greatest empire. For the first time, Alira felt something she had rarely experienced: hope, and she knew that the arrival of this human had changed everything. As the palace lights glimmered like stars, Alira and Ethan began to plan, unaware of the full scope of challenges the future would bring, yet ready to face them together. The morning on Veloria dawned quiet but tense. Alira moved through the palace corridors with purpose, her mind occupied with strategies and calculations. The Korvath Dominion had retreated for now, but she knew this was only a temporary reprieve. The true battle would come soon, and her people had to be ready. She glanced at Ethan, who was still recovering from the crash but now seemed restless and eager. The way he observed everything, with sharp eyes and thoughtful expressions, reminded her that humans had a different kind of intelligence: quick, adaptable, and unpredictable. "We need to train your people," Alira said as they walked through the gardens. "We cannot rely on our current soldiers alone. We need minds that can think like strategists, not just warriors." Ethan nodded. "Then let's start immediately. I can help develop exercises that teach flexibility and improvisation. Veloria is advanced, yes, but your people are rigid. That could be a weakness." Alira studied him carefully. His words were blunt, but they carried truth. The Velorians were brilliant engineers and scholars, but their military doctrine relied heavily on precision, routine, and technology. Creativity in combat was often discouraged, considered risky. If they were to survive against the Korvath Dominion, that mindset had to change. The first exercise took place in the training fields, where levitating platforms hovered over a shallow energy river. Alira and Ethan watched as soldiers went through drills, firing energy rifles at moving targets, coordinating with hover vehicles, and navigating difficult terrain. Ethan observed quietly, noting patterns in their movement, strengths, and weaknesses. "Your soldiers are strong," he said finally, "but they move like machines, predictable and too coordinated. If an enemy adapts, they could fall apart." Alira frowned. "What do you suggest?" He grinned. "Chaos, controlled chaos. Teach them to anticipate, improvise, and use the terrain to their advantage. Let them think for themselves instead of following strict orders." Over the next several days, Alira and Ethan worked tirelessly. They redesigned drills, adding unexpected obstacles and surprise scenarios. Soldiers were required to change tactics on the fly, make decisions without waiting for commands, and collaborate in small teams that could operate independently. At first, many resisted. They were uncomfortable with uncertainty, but Alira's presence, calm authority, and encouragement gradually won them over. One afternoon, during a particularly intense drill, Ethan challenged a group of elite soldiers to capture a simulated enemy base on one of the floating islands. The soldiers were confident, but Ethan introduced a twist. The enemy would move unpredictably, using traps and decoys that mimicked the Korvath Dominion's tactics. At first, chaos erupted. Soldiers collided, missed targets, and became frustrated. Alira observed quietly, her eyes scanning every action, every hesitation. Then something remarkable happened. One soldier, a young woman named Lyra, began to improvise, taking a route others had overlooked and using the terrain to her advantage. Another group adapted, coordinating silently and outmaneuvering the simulated enemy. Within minutes, they had captured the target. Alira's eyes widened in approval. "Exactly," Ethan said, clapping lightly. "When they think for themselves, they become unpredictable, dangerous, and effective. Strength without adaptability is useless against an empire like the Korvath." Alira nodded. She felt a surge of pride. Her people were learning to embrace a new kind of strength, one that combined their technology with creativity and courage. For the first time, she believed they could stand against the invaders. The work was not without danger. One evening, while Alira and Ethan were reviewing tactical simulations, the palace sensors detected a small scout ship approaching from the Korvath Dominion. It was sleek, black, and silent, and it appeared to be gathering intelligence. Alira's heart tightened. If the Dominion had learned even a fraction of what they were doing, their plans could be compromised. Ethan leaned over the console, analyzing the ship's trajectory. "They're cautious," he said, "but they're testing your defenses. They want to know how strong you are before they commit fully." Alira clenched her fists. "Then we must be ready for them, prepare a countermeasure. I want them to leave with doubt, not confidence." Using the lessons they had been teaching the soldiers, Alira and Ethan devised a series of traps and illusions. They created decoy energy fields, holographic images of troop movements, and false supply routes, all designed to confuse the scout ship's sensors. When the Korvath vessel approached, it became clear that their intelligence gathering had failed. Their readings were inconsistent, and the ship hesitated, firing probes that were intercepted and misdirected. Alira watched from the observation deck as the vessel retreated. "It worked," she said quietly, a sense of satisfaction warming her chest. Ethan smiled. "It's only a small victory, but it shows your people can adapt. The Dominion expects perfection. Give them uncertainty and you take the advantage." As the days passed, Alira and Ethan grew closer, not in romance but in partnership and trust. They shared meals in the palace garden, discussing philosophy, strategy, and the histories of their respective worlds. Ethan told stories of Earth, a small blue planet full of conflict, wonder, and resilience. Alira shared the legends of Valoria, of its founders, and of the mystical power that lay hidden deep within the planet. It was during one of these evenings that Ethan spoke of the Empire's tactics. "The Korvath are relentless," he said, his voice low and serious. "They do not fight fairly. They exploit weakness, destroy morale, and use fear as a weapon. If they truly decide to attack, your people cannot rely on shields or technology alone. You must be smarter, faster, and more unpredictable than they expect." Alira nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. "And yet, I have faith in my people. If we combine strategy with courage, we can outthink them." Their discussion was interrupted by a commotion near the palace gates. Alira and Ethan rushed outside to see a group of palace workers pointing toward the distant forest. Smoke rose in the distance, and Alira's stomach clenched. She called for immediate reconnaissance. Within minutes, a report came in. A group of Korvath spies had infiltrated the outer perimeter, attempting to sabotage the energy conduits that powered part of the city's defenses. Without hesitation, Alira led a small squad to intercept them, Ethan at her side. They moved quickly and silently through the forest, using the terrain to their advantage. When they encountered the intruders, Alira and her soldiers executed a coordinated maneuver, capturing the spies without firing a single shot. The Korvath agents were taken to a secure facility for questioning. Alira observed them carefully. They were ruthless, trained, and efficient, but they underestimated the intelligence, adaptability, and courage of her people. She realized that victory against the Dominion would not come from brute force alone, but from outthinking them at every turn. Later that evening, Alira and Ethan reviewed the captured data. It revealed that the Korvath Dominion had learned of Valoria's mystical energy source, the one hidden deep within the planet. If the Empire obtained it, they would gain unstoppable power, enough to dominate the entire sector. Alira felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The stakes were higher than she had imagined. "We cannot let them reach it," she said firmly. "We must protect the source at all costs." Ethan nodded. "Then we need a plan, something unexpected, something they would never predict. If they come for it, we must be ready to turn their own strategies against them." Over the next weeks, Alira and Ethan worked tirelessly. They studied the Dominion's tactics, trained the soldiers in improvisation, and developed contingency plans for every possible scenario. The palace became a hive of activity, buzzing with energy, determination, and quiet anticipation. Alira felt the weight of responsibility more keenly than ever, but she also felt a growing confidence. Her people were learning to embrace uncertainty, creativity, and courage. With Ethan's guidance, they were becoming a force the Korvath Dominion could not easily defeat. One night, as Alira gazed at the twin moons rising over the floating mountains, Ethan approached her. "You've changed," he said quietly. "Not just your people, but you. You think differently now. You trust your instincts and you are willing to take risks others wouldn't. That is the mark of a great leader." Alira smiled faintly, a mixture of pride and concern in her eyes. "The Dominion will not wait long. Their next attack will be stronger, more calculated. I hope we are ready." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "We will be. Together, we'll make sure Veloria stands, no matter what they bring." As the night deepened, the stars reflected off the crystal towers of the palace, shimmering like 1,000 tiny promises. Alira and Ethan knew that the coming battle would test everything they had worked for, their courage, their intellect, and the very essence of their people. Yet in that moment, standing side by side, they felt a sense of unity and purpose that gave them strength. The Korvath Dominion would come again, and when they did, Alira and her people would be ready, not just to fight, but to outthink, outmaneuver, and ultimately overcome an empire that had believed no world could resist its might. In the quiet before the storm, Alira felt hope. And for the first time in her life, she understood that the arrival of a single human, lost and bewildered though he was, could change the fate of an entire world. The day had a strange stillness, as though the planet itself held its breath. Alira stood on the highest balcony of the palace, overlooking the floating mountains and the forests that shimmered with their natural energy. The twin suns hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the city. Every sensor in the palace was active, every patrol doubled, and yet Alira felt a tension deeper than any alarm could measure. She knew the Korvath Dominion was coming. They had tested her defenses, probed her borders, and now they would return with force. Ethan joined her, his brow furrowed as he looked out across the horizon. "They've been preparing," he said. "All those small probes and scouts. They weren't just testing, they were mapping, learning. Every move we made, every tactic we used, they recorded it all. When they come, they'll try to exploit our weaknesses." Alira nodded, her mind racing through possibilities. "Then we must be ready for anything, but we will not just defend, we will surprise them. We will turn their own strategies against them." The Velorian soldiers had been trained for weeks under her and Ethan's guidance. No longer were they predictable, rigid machines. They had learned to improvise, to think independently, to use the floating mountains, rivers, and forests to their advantage. Alira felt a quiet pride as she watched them prepare for the incoming invasion. The first sight of the Korvath fleet sent a shiver through her. The ships were vast, black as obsidian, and bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities. They moved in perfect formation, calculating, precise, and relentless. The planet's energy shields shimmered as the first wave approached, absorbing warning shots and deflecting them harmlessly. Yet Alira knew these shields could only hold for so long. "Deploy the decoys," she ordered. "Ethan, now." Ethan's fingers danced over the control panel. Holographic projections flickered into existence across the mountains, simulating troop movements, energy fields, and even phantom supply routes. The Dominion sensors scanned, expecting patterns, and found chaos instead. Some ships hesitated. Others fired blindly, damaging nothing but the projected illusions. The Korvath commander, a tall, imposing figure clad in black armor, clenched his fists. "They are clever," he growled. "But cleverness cannot stop an empire. Prepare for the main assault." Alira watched from the observation deck as the first wave of Dominion ground forces descended toward the lower forests and plateau cities. Soldiers and vehicles dropped onto the landscape, expecting minimal resistance. They had underestimated Valoria's ingenuity. From the forest, Valorian troops emerged, their movements unpredictable and fluid. Hover bikes darted between trees, energy traps activated from hidden devices, and soldiers moved in coordinated patterns that seemed chaotic but were deadly precise. The Dominion troops, expecting straight lines and predictable attacks, were caught off guard. Confusion spread among their ranks. Ethan moved alongside Alira, pointing out openings and opportunities. "Focus here," he said, indicating a narrow pass between two floating cliffs. "They'll funnel through it. We can ambush and disable half their vehicles before they even realize it." Alira nodded and activated the plan. Energy nets shot across the pass, catching armored vehicles and immobilizing them. Hidden turrets fired concentrated pulses, striking with precision. The Dominion forces roared in frustration, unprepared for this level of strategic thinking from what they had considered a weaker world. Despite the success of their defense, Alira knew the battle had only begun. The Dominion would adapt, and they were relentless. She signaled the evacuation of civilians from the lower city zones, ensuring the protection of those who could not fight. Her focus remained on the battlefield, her mind calculating every possibility, every move. As the fight intensified, a fleet of Dominion airships swooped down from the upper atmosphere. These were faster, more agile, and equipped with weapons designed to bypass energy shields. Alira realized that the Dominion intended to overwhelm them with a two-pronged attack: ground forces to distract and destroy, and aerial units to target critical infrastructure. "Ethan, we need a counterstrike," she shouted over the hum of energy weapons and explosions. He scanned the battlefield. "Use the river channels. They're narrow, but if we collapse certain bridges and trigger energy pulses along the banks, we can create a barrier that forces them into predictable paths. Then we strike from above." Alira implemented the plan, coordinating with squads stationed along the riverbanks. Energy pulses surged, bridges collapsed with controlled precision, and the Dominion airships were funneled into a narrow corridor. Valorian hover squads struck from the cliffs, picking off the ships one by one. Chaos reigned in the Dominion ranks, but it was the kind of chaos Alira's forces thrived in. Hours passed, and the battle continued. Valoria's soldiers, once rigid in their movements, now fought with creativity and courage, adapting to every new threat. Ethan moved among them, giving guidance, adjusting strategies, and boosting morale. Alira watched with a mixture of awe and relief. Her people were not only surviving, they were excelling, embodying the unpredictable strength she had hoped to cultivate. Then came the intelligence that sent a chill down Alira's spine. The Korvath Dominion had discovered a hidden energy conduit near the heart of the planet, a pathway leading toward the mystical power she had sworn to protect. If the Dominion gained access, all their strategies and technological superiority would be meaningless. They would become unstoppable. Alira felt the weight of responsibility settle heavier than ever. She had trained her people, prepared the defenses, but the final obstacle was personal. She could not allow the Dominion to reach that power. She would have to act herself. "Ethan," she said quietly, though her voice carried determination, "I must go to the conduit. I will not let them take it. You must stay and coordinate the defense here." Ethan's eyes widened, concern flashing across his face. Alone, that is too dangerous. They will have guards, traps. I know, Alira interrupted, but if I wait it will be too late. You have taught me to act decisively. Now it is my turn. Protect the people. I will protect the power. He studied her, a mixture of admiration and worry in his expression. Then go, he said finally, and trust yourself. I know you can do this. Alira set out with a small escort of elite Valorian scouts, moving swiftly through secret paths in the forest. They avoided the main battlefield, navigating hidden tunnels and natural corridors, known only to those who had lived on the planet all their lives. The journey was tense. The sounds of distant explosions and energy discharges echoed through the trees, a constant reminder of the danger waiting ahead. As they neared the energy conduit, Alira's sensors detected Dominion forces already probing the area. A squad of enemy troops had breached the outer defenses, searching for the entrance to the chamber where the mystical power was stored. Alira signaled her team to take positions, using the terrain to their advantage. The first Dominion scout appeared, moving cautiously among the glowing rock formations. Alira waited, observing the patterns in their movements. Then, with precision, she activated a trap. A concealed energy net shot up from the ground, immobilizing the scout instantly. One by one, the Dominion soldiers fell into similar traps, unable to anticipate the unpredictable patterns Alira had set. She moved through the battlefield with grace and authority, her every decision precise, her instincts sharp. Her scouts followed, adapting to changes in the enemy's tactics, turning each attack into an opportunity. Finally, Alira reached the entrance to the conduit chamber. The energy inside pulsed with an otherworldly glow, illuminating the walls with streaks of light that danced like living fire. She could feel the raw power radiating from the core, a strength that could reshape worlds if misused. Her heart pounded, knowing that if the Dominion captured this, countless lives would be at risk. From the shadows, the Korvath commander appeared, flanked by guards. His armor glinted in the energy light, and his expression was one of surprise and respect. "You are bold, princess," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I expected you to hide behind your people, to cower and wait, but you came alone. Foolish or brave?" Alira stepped forward, her gaze steady. "I am neither," she said. "I am determined. And I will not let an empire take what does not belong to them." The commander laughed softly, a sound void of warmth. "Determination is not enough. You are alone and your people are weak. Surrender the conduit and perhaps I will spare this planet." Alira's hand moved to the controls she had prepared, a series of devices designed to activate defensive mechanisms around the conduit. Energy barriers rose, hidden turrets activated, and the floor shifted to disorient the Dominion forces. She had learned from Ethan that innovation and unpredictability were the strongest weapons. Now she was using them to full effect. The Korvath commander advanced, but each step was met with resistance. Traps, energy fields, and strategic obstacles slowed his progress, frustrating him. Alira's confidence grew. This was not just defense. It was a demonstration of the intelligence, courage, and adaptability her people had cultivated under her leadership. Finally, after tense minutes that felt like hours, Alira activated the final mechanism, a surge of energy that repelled the Dominion forces from the conduit chamber without causing permanent harm. The Korvath commander, realizing defeat, signaled a retreat. The chamber remained secure, and the mystical power was safe, for now. Breathing heavily, Alira looked around at the glowing energy, feeling a mixture of relief and triumph. She had faced the Empire directly and emerged victorious. She had not only protected her world's greatest treasure, but had proven that courage, intelligence, and innovation could triumph over brute force. The sky above Valoria burned with the fiery trails of Dominion ships retreating, their engines leaving streaks of smoke across the horizon. Alira stood on the balcony of the palace, her gaze following their departure, but her heart remained heavy. The battle was not fully over. She knew the Korvath Dominion would not give up so easily. They were patient, calculating, and relentless. She had protected the mystical power for now, but she could not allow the Empire to regroup and return with even greater force. Ethan joined her, his expression serious. "You did well," he said quietly. "The conduit is safe, and the Dominion has retreated. But you know they will plan another assault. We cannot wait for them to attack again. We must act first." Alira nodded. She had considered this. Defending was only part of the solution. To truly secure her people's future, she had to take the fight to the enemy. "Then we strike," she said firmly. "We cannot let fear control us. If we act with intelligence and courage, we can end this before it begins again." She convened a council of her generals and advisors. Ethan stood beside her, a calm presence amid the tense atmosphere. Maps and holographic displays filled the room, showing the Dominion's fleet movements and suspected supply lines. Alira spoke with clarity and conviction. "The Dominion believes they are unstoppable because they rely on fear and force. But we have something they do not: unpredictability, strategy, and courage. We will strike at the heart of their operations and show them that Valoria is not a world to conquer easily." Her advisors murmured in concern, some fearful of overstepping. Alira silenced them with a look. "We do not fight blindly, we fight smart. Our people are ready and we are ready. The time for hesitation is over." Over the next several days, Alira and Ethan coordinated a complex plan. Valoria's fleets would use deceptive maneuvers to draw the Dominion into a trap. Ground teams would infiltrate key supply hubs, cutting off resources, while elite squads targeted the communication networks of the Dominion command. Every element of the plan relied on adaptability, creativity, and timing, the very qualities Alira had instilled in her soldiers. When the day arrived, the sky was alive with activity. Valorian ships, sleek and agile, moved with purpose through the atmosphere, using the floating mountains and cloud layers to mask their approach. Energy pulses from the cities created illusions that made the fleet appear larger and more dispersed than it was. The Korvath Dominion, confident in their intelligence, fell for the ruse immediately. Ethan guided the fleet from the command center, his voice calm yet commanding. "Focus here. The Dominion will take the bait. Wait for my signal and then strike from multiple angles." Timing is everything. Alira watched the holographic displays, her mind calculating every move. The Korvath ships moved as expected, funneling toward the false signals. Then, with a single command, the Valorian forces attacked. Energy blasts struck with precision, disabling engines and weapons. Dominion troops attempting to land were met with unpredictable ambushes, collapsing energy nets and strategically placed traps. The battlefield became a living puzzle, each piece designed to confuse, frustrate, and defeat the enemy. Amid the chaos, Alira led a team to the central command vessel of the Dominion fleet. Using the terrain, stealth, and careful strategy, they infiltrated the ship, neutralizing guards and avoiding detection. Alira's movements were precise, her decisions deliberate, every action calculated to outsmart the enemy. She felt a surge of pride as she realized how much her people had grown, how much they had learned from weeks of training, improvisation, and courage. Inside the command vessel, Alira confronted the Dominion commander once more. His armor was battered, his face twisted in anger and disbelief. "You again," he growled. "How is this possible? We control fleets, armies, and yet you strike at us like a shadow. You are not a child of fear, you are something else entirely." Alira's eyes glimmered with determination. "I am the protector of my people, and I am the guardian of what you cannot understand. Strength is not measured by force alone. Strategy, courage, and intelligence are just as powerful as any weapon you possess. Today you will see that." With swift precision, Alira activated the ship's containment overrides, turning the Dominion's own systems against them. Turrets malfunctioned, engines shut down, and the command vessel was rendered immobile. The commander realized too late that every step he had taken had been anticipated, that every tactic he had relied on had been countered. His fleet, now leaderless and confused, began to retreat under fire from Veloria's forces. Alira watched from the control room as the Dominion ships fell one by one or fled into space. She felt a wave of relief, tempered by the awareness that vigilance would always be necessary. Yet in that moment, a sense of triumph filled her chest. She had not only defended her people but had struck decisively, turning the enemy's strength into weakness. Ethan appeared at her side, his expression a mixture of admiration and respect. "You've done it," he said. "You've stopped them. You've shown them that Veloria is not a world to be conquered." Alira nodded, her thoughts returning to her people, who had fought bravely on multiple fronts. Soldiers, engineers, and citizens alike had embraced unpredictability, courage, and intelligence. They had become more than defenders. They had become warriors in the truest sense, embodying the principles Alira believed in. As the Dominion fleet disappeared from Veloria's orbit, Alira and Ethan returned to the palace, greeted by cheering citizens and grateful soldiers. The streets and skyways were alive with celebration, but Alira did not allow herself to be carried away by triumph. She knew that leadership required constant vigilance, and that peace was only meaningful when paired with preparation and wisdom. She addressed the people from the palace balcony, her voice carrying across the city. "Today, we have defended our home, not with fear, not with submission, but with courage, intelligence, and unity. Veloria stands because we have learned to think, adapt, and act together. Let this victory remind us that no empire, no force, can conquer a people who refuse to surrender their minds, their hearts, or their spirit." The crowd erupted in applause, their energy a tangible force that seemed to lift the palace itself. Alira felt the warmth of their trust and admiration, a reassurance that her leadership had inspired not just obedience but belief in something greater. Ethan stood beside her, smiling. "You have done more than stop an empire," he said. "You have inspired your people. You have shown them what they are capable of, and you've shown me what courage and leadership truly mean." Alira allowed herself a small smile. "And you've shown me the value of adaptability, innovation, and the courage to try what others fear. We've learned from each other. That is the true strength of this world." As night fell over Veloria, the twin moons casting silver light across the floating mountains, Alira walked through the city with Ethan. They visited the wounded, checked on the defenses, and celebrated quietly with the soldiers who had risked everything. The city was alive with relief and joy, but there was also an unspoken understanding that vigilance would always be necessary. In the palace gardens, Alira paused to gaze at the mystical energy conduit, now safe and secure. The light pulsed gently, as if acknowledging the trials it had endured. She felt a connection to it, a reminder of the responsibilities that came with power. She knew that the Dominion could return, perhaps stronger or more cunning, but she also knew that her people had changed. They were no longer passive subjects. They were active, intelligent, and courageous participants in their own destiny. Ethan joined her, watching the pulsing light. "Do you think they will come again?" he asked. "Perhaps," Alira replied. "But it does not matter. We are ready. Veloria is ready. We have learned that true strength comes from courage, intelligence, and unity. No empire can take that from us." He nodded, a sense of calm settling over him. "Then let them come. We will meet them and we will prevail." Alira looked up at the stars, imagining the vastness of space, the countless worlds, and the challenges yet to come. She felt a sense of purpose and responsibility, tempered by hope. The Korvath Dominion had been defeated, but more importantly, her people had discovered their potential. They had proven that even against overwhelming odds, intelligence, courage, and determination could reshape the fate of a world. As the night deepened, Alira and Ethan returned to the palace balcony. The city below was quiet now, the celebrations soft and distant. Alira felt the weight of leadership, but also the lightness of accomplishment. She had faced an empire, protected her world, and inspired her people. She had learned that even a single human, arriving unexpectedly, could change the course of destiny. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of solidarity and friendship. "You've done something remarkable," he said, "not just for your world, but for everyone who believes in courage, intelligence, and hope." Alira smiled, looking out at the horizon. "We've done it together," she said, "and together we will continue to protect Veloria, to grow stronger, and to face whatever challenges come next." The twin moons reflected on the crystal towers, casting light that shimmered like the promise of a new beginning. Alira and Ethan stood side by side, ready to face the future. The Korvath Dominion had been stopped, but more importantly, Veloria had proven that even in the darkest times, intelligence, courage, and unity could conquer any empire. And in that quiet, shimmering night, a new chapter began for Alira, for Ethan, and for a world that had discovered its true strength. The human entered her world, and the princess stopped an empire.